don't want to do this. This is quite literally one of my most hated episodes of SpongeBob. It's higher on my list than Are You Happy Now?, A Pal for Gary, and Truth or Square. This was quite possibly the first episode of SpongeBob I ever saw and immediately hated it. Well, let's get this over with. I'm the Entity of Darkness, and this is All That Glitters. Yeah, I remember watching this episode on TV, and I hated it. Every single second of it was awful. But now that I'm older, is there anything of good quality in this episode? Well, it starts with an animated title card? That's a rarity for this show, but it's kind of nice. Anyway, the episode truly begins with some fish ordering a monster Krabby Patty. You know, that thing that was never built up, established, or mentioned. Ever. Continuity? What's that? So, some gross hands that make me question why they don't have Hans anymore, and a gross pile of meat later, SpongeBob's spatula breaks. And I'm not shocked. That big a pile of meat would not be flippable by that tiny tin toy. It's like trying to stop a forest fire with a fire blanket. It's not gonna work. And speaking of not helping, we get treated to 46 seconds of SpongeBob screaming and crying. I counted. They try to have things in the background, but they're not that funny. Here is the one scene that made me chuckle.
Go on.
After the 46 seconds of wasted episode, Mr. Krabs suggests getting a replacement spatula, which SpongeBob is almost offended by. And then flashbacks. I didn't time this bit, but I can assume it's around the same time as the screaming and crying scene. So SpongeBob now has to get a replacement spatula, and he does. And from him deciding to buy it and to him actually getting it, it takes exactly 1 minute and 3 seconds. This is one of the biggest problems with the episode. There is so much wasted space. Slim down SpongeBob crying, the Monster Patty gag, the flashbacks, and this scene, and you have so much left to work with. The other big problem with the episode? They take it too fucking seriously. I skipped over the hospital scene, but dear Luna, they take this so seriously. I'm not sure if they wanted to poke fun at soap operas for being so melodramatic, or if they thought the joke of being too dramatic for a spatula was funny enough to sustain an episode. But whatever the case, it's not only unfunny, but also really boring. So SpongeBob takes his new spatula to work, and you can tell what's going to happen from that sentence. After SpongeBob gets insulted and abandoned by his new spatula, which is a French stereotype, and not a funny one either, he goes back to his spatula, which is mad at him. This is the biggest problem with the episode. SpongeBob is shown to be in the wrong for needing a replacement spatula for work. SpongeBob is the one who, to put it, must atone for his sins at the foot of his spatula. And this would be just a problem at that, but there is one more thing that makes this the biggest problem.
All that glitters is not gold.
Aside from that being the creepiest way to tell any moral, that is not the moral the story was aiming. SpongeBob needed a new spatula for work. Yes, he did choose the one that was expensive and looked nice, but we never saw any other spatula available. As far as I can tell, this was the only spatula, not just in stock, but also in the entire city. It is a combination of the writing and the animation that kills this moral. The ending does not redeem anything either. The spatula and SpongeBob just kind of make up, and after what looks like animation from the 70s, we get a reprisal of the Monster Krabby Patty gag. They don't even reference the opening by having everyone shout, "Monster Krabby Patty?" all at once, instead just opting to rip off SpongeBob's arms. This episode was awful! There was only one scene in the entire episode that even made me smile, and quite honestly, that is the only positive I have. The writing is awful, the story and moral don't mix, the way the moral was given was creepy, the animation was inconsistent, the humor was practically dead, and it's just too melodramatic as all hell. This is my least favorite SpongeBob episode. Not my most hated, there are episodes that have more disgusting content, But this one has so little actual content and so much filler, and what content it does have screws over the story and moral, and both of these screw over each other. That is why this is my least favorite episode of SpongeBob. I'm the Entity of Darkness. Fare thee well.
Hey, Granny, what's shaking?
It's not